Have you ever watched a dog sleep and noticed its legs twitching, its nose wiggling, little whimpers escaping as it dreams? And you've probably thought, what is going on in there? What is it seeing? What world is it running through right now? That question, what's happening inside an animal's mind, is one of the oldest and most fascinating rabbit holes in science. And today, we're going to go down it. Because I want to ask something even deeper than whether animals dream. I want to ask, do animals have imagination? Can a crow picture a tool it hasn't made yet? Can a dog conjure up the image of its owner when they're not in the room? Can a chimpanzee mentally rehearse a plan before carrying it out? These aren't just fun questions. The answers could completely reshape how we think about the minds of the creatures we share this planet with. Let's start by figuring out what imagination actually is, because it's one of those words we all use but rarely stop to define. At its core, imagination is the ability to mentally simulate things that aren't happening right now. It's the brain's ability to take information it already has and recombine it, project it forward, or conjure it up on demand. When you imagine biting into a lemon, your mouth might actually water. When you imagine a scary scenario, your heart rate can go up. Imagination isn't just fantasy. It's the brain running a kind of internal simulation of reality. And here's the important thing. Imagination isn't one single thing. It's actually a collection of mental abilities. There's mental imagery, picturing something in your mind. There's prospective thinking, mentally simulating future events. There's counterfactual thinking, imagining how things could have gone differently. There's pretend play, acting as if something is the case when it isn't. And there's planning, mentally stepping through a sequence of actions before you take them. So the question isn't really a yes or no. It's which of these abilities do animals have, and to what degree? Let's start with one of the most compelling cases: planning. In 2009, a chimpanzee at a Swedish zoo named Santino became pretty famous in the scientific community. Every morning before the zoo opened, Santino would collect stones from the moat around his enclosure and hide them in little caches around the exhibit. Then, when visitors arrived and started bothering him, he'd throw the stones at them. Now, here's what makes this remarkable. He was collecting the ammunition hours before the situation that would require it. He was mentally projecting himself into a future scenario and preparing for it in the present. That's not just instinct. That requires some form of mental simulation, some version of imagination. And Santino isn't alone. Ravens have been shown to plan for future needs in ways that go beyond anything that could be explained by simple conditioning. In one experiment, ravens learned to use a specific tool to get food from a box. When given the chance to pick up that tool and carry it away, with no immediate reward in sight, they did it. They took the tool, knowing they'd need it later. They were essentially packing for a future trip. Then there's mental imagery. This one is harder to test because we can't ask animals to describe what they're picturing. But there's some interesting evidence suggesting animals do form internal representations of things, even when those things aren't physically present. Dogs are a great example here. Studies have shown that dogs have a detailed mental model of their owner's face. When researchers used eye tracking technology, they found that dogs look at human faces in a way that's sensitive to expression. They process emotion, they track gaze, they remember features. And when dogs are separated from their owners and then reunited, their behavior suggests genuine recognition rooted in something more than just smell. There seems to be a stored internal picture. Even more striking is research on object permanence, the understanding that something continues to exist even when you can't see it. Human babies develop this around 8 or 9 months, and many animals, dogs, cats, ravens, primates, pass object permanence tests. They'll search for a hidden object because somewhere in their mind, the object still exists. They're holding a mental representation of something that isn't in front of them. That's the seed of imagination right there. Now let's talk about something that really gets interesting. Pretend play. Pretend play is when you act as if something is the case when it demonstrably isn't. A child picks up a banana and pretends it's a phone. That requires the ability to hold two realities in mind simultaneously: what is real and what is being imagined. It's one of the cognitive building blocks of creativity and fiction. Do animals do this? Well, the evidence is patchy, but it's there. Great apes raised in human environments have been observed engaging in what looks remarkably like pretend play. Coco the gorilla, who was taught sign language, was once observed pretending that a rubber alligator was biting her while signing to herself. Young dolphins have been seen blowing bubble rings and then batting them around, behavior that serves no survival function and looks a lot like play with imaginary objects. Young ravens engage in what researchers call object play, tossing and manipulating objects in ways that seem to be about exploration and novelty rather than any practical purpose. Now, a fair question is, are we just projecting? Are we seeing what we want to see because we're wired to anthropomorphize everything with eyes? It's a legitimate concern. Scientists call this the problem of anthropomorphism, and it's been a real obstacle in animal cognition research for decades. For a long time, the scientific establishment was so afraid of projecting human qualities onto animals that they swung to the other extreme and refused to acknowledge even obvious signs of inner life. We now know that went too far in the opposite direction. The modern view is more nuanced. We don't assume animals experience the world the way we do, but we also don't assume they experience nothing. The evidence strongly suggests that many animals have rich inner lives, mental representations, simulations, emotions, and something that at least rhymes with imagination, even if it doesn't match it perfectly. And actually, there's a strong evolutionary argument for this. Imagination, the ability to mentally simulate scenarios before they happen, is enormously useful for survival. An animal that can mentally rehearse a hunt, or imagine the location of food it found last week, or picture an escape route before it needs one, is going to outperform an animal that can't. Evolution doesn't waste things that work. If imagination provides a survival advantage, we'd expect it to emerge in different forms across many species. Which brings us back to that sleeping dog. Those twitching legs, those little whimpers. Research into animal sleep has found that many mammals, including rats, dogs, and primates, experience REM sleep, the stage where vivid dreaming occurs in humans. And studies on rats have shown that during sleep, their hippocampal neurons fire in patterns that mirror the patterns from earlier in the day when they were navigating mazes. They appear to be replaying, and possibly reworking, their experiences. They are, in a very literal neurological sense, running simulations while they sleep. So, do animals have imagination? The honest answer is probably yes, in varying degrees and in different flavors than our own. A crow might not daydream about art or wonder about its own existence, but it can plan, it can simulate, it can represent things that aren't there. The architecture of imagination exists in the animal kingdom. We just share the blueprint in different ways. And maybe that's the most interesting takeaway. Imagination isn't some magical human superpower that arrived fully formed out of nowhere. It evolved. It has roots. It has cousins. And the next time you watch that dog dreaming, you're not just watching an animal sleep. You're watching millions of years of mental evolution doing its thing.